Oh, no. I hate microphones, so bear with me. And I had a lot of beer in Graz. The beer is too good here. Okay. I am the director of Google Cloud Platform. I have an organization of about 150 designers reporting into me. We're growing very fast. We'll be over 200 in the next 6 months. So it's a sizable organization. Let me give you a quick overview of my background. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but I want to give you some context of where my perspectives are coming from. So I started off, I got a bachelor and a master's in computer science. I then went on to work for IBM for a short time, and then founded 2 startups. After that, I joined a startup early stage when it was about 20-something people, and we were acquired by CA Technologies for $200 million. I stayed at CA as VP and then SVP of UX worldwide. I then joined IBM. If you've heard about any of IBM's initiatives around design and the large amount of designers they've been hiring, I joined when it first started as the first design executive at IBM and helped Phil Gilbert kind of work on that mission for design at IBM. And I was also the head of the Mobile Innovation Lab at IBM. I built a mobile innovation lab from scratch, and we had a lot of success. I was then recruited by Microsoft to go up to Seattle, and it was a blue sky project to build a Tableau killer, Power BI, and I built a design team for that. And we wound up being in Gartner's leadership quadrant in 6 months. It was a crazy ride. As a result of that, then Google recruited me to come to Google and lead Google Cloud Platform. So that's kind of the context. So the 3 problems. So the way I did this, I came up with what I felt the 3 problems are. And then I started reaching out to my network. I have a strong network, and I reached out to leaders at Amazon, Microsoft, Facebook, IBM, within Google, some smaller startups, and asked them the same question, what they felt the top 3 problems in UX design are. And then I took that list, and I combined it and compared it to mine, and then distilled it down to the 3 problems I'm going to show you, okay? So here we go. Problem number 1. Design does what? So I've been at a lot of companies at this point. I've built a lot of organizations. I've built small ones. I've built big ones. And I can tell you that this problem still exists, right? The role of design, what we're responsible for, who makes decisions is still there everywhere I look. And this creates some challenges. So I see unrealistic expectations both in the designers that we put on our teams, as well as within executives that we work with and key stakeholders. And what I mean by that is that we hire designers that often expect to change the world and do amazing design and design that impacts their portfolio, and that's great, but we also have a lot of practical design work to do and a lot of constraints that we have to work within. I also know a lot of executives, I've met with a lot of CEOs, who think that if you hire a design team, it's a silver bullet and it will fix all the problems for the company, right? And it feels good at first. It feels good to be the silver bullet, you know. I've been a victim of that. But it's an unrealistic expectation, right? We can't really deliver on that, so you have to be very careful. Another challenge is balancing forward-looking work with incremental work. You know, typically, I tell my teams all the time, to really be successful, we've got to do both, right? We've got to stay ahead of the game, ahead of the product, and look at where we should go with the product, but we've also got to keep the lights on, and we have to improve the product over time. But that's always a struggle. It's always a challenge within the teams that I'm familiar with. Decision authority. It kills me. It's so surprising to me at this point that I go to so many companies and talk to so many teams, and there's still confusion over who has the authority to make decisions on designs, right? Or on priorities and products. I mean, do you guys encounter this, or is it just me? All the time, okay. Thank you. Yeah, it's a huge problem. It's a huge problem. And then finally, every single leader that I polled, that I talked to, had the last one on their list. Every single one. The belief that even though we've made a lot of progress, UX is still not a true peer of engineering and product management. Would you agree? Yeah? Yeah. Okay. So, some ways to improve. So, we spend a lot of time and we devote a lot of effort into setting and aligning expectations now. We do that with the designers that we hire. We explain constraints. We talk about the fact that, business is about constraints. It's about cost. It's about strategy. It's about time. And we have to operate within those constraints. And we are going to do very creative work, but we're also going to do a lot of work that may not seem as creative, but it has a lot of value, right? I spend a lot of time with executives setting expectations as well and explaining what we can and can't do. And the fact that, if you don't invest in UX, you're increasing your risk, right? It takes a lot of work, but it's critical. And I've had tremendous results from just sitting down with SVPs, CEOs, VPs, and saying, here's what design is, here's what design can do, right? And here's realistically how long it's going to take. Clear roles and responsibilities. So I reported to a CTO many years ago, and at the start of every project, he would sit us around the table, and he would go around the table and tell everybody what their role and responsibility was, what they had authority over. And he'd give everyone at the table the opportunity to challenge that, to say, no, I don't believe that. But at the end of the meeting, we walked out of that room, and everybody knew who was responsible for what and who had authority over what. And I didn't appreciate it at the time, but I really appreciate it now because it really sets projects up for success. Having very clear roles and responsibilities is critical, right? And we don't do it. We never do it. Especially with regard to final decision authority. That's critical. And then the last one, and this one is tough, I know, but also critical, is acquiring top-down support. If you don't have top-down support, you're in trouble. I mean, I've never seen it. I've seen teams struggle, attempt to be successful, get frustrated. And I don't mean top-down support as, the CEO or somebody saying, yeah, design's cool. I mean, they're putting their money where their mouth is, right? They're investing in it. They're telling teams that this is how we're going to operate and use design. We're going to leverage design strategically, right? Okay, the second problem. So, design at scale. Now, this one is really tough. And when I look at this picture, it actually makes me sick. It may be the beer, I don't know, but so I see like hundreds of engineers tapping away, right? The train doesn't stop, Like, we're a precious resource, and it's very difficult to scale us. And have an impact across large organizations. So some of the challenges, bottlenecks. So you want to do whatever you can to avoid being a bottleneck, right? We try to improve design and improve our products by saying, well, design has to approve everything, but we're too small. We're setting ourselves up for failure by doing that. Never be a bottleneck, because it's going to only cause problems. Peanut buttering, are you familiar with that term? So basically, say you have 10 designers and you really need 100. What you wind up doing is you wind up spreading them across projects real thin, right? That's peanut buttering. So you put one here, one here, one here, and usually the results are not good. Organization structure is a challenge. You have to really factor in scale and the needs of scale when you organize your teams so that you can scale, right? Velocity versus quality. This is always a challenge for us. Go faster, right? But also do it good. We acquire that all the time. And then And then complexity, you can think of scale in terms of volume and size of projects, or you can think of it in terms of complexity. And complexity requires collaboration. And real collaboration, good collaboration, is challenging. It's hard, very hard. So, some of the ways we're tackling this. I organize my teams for agility. I didn't come up with this, but I borrowed this phrase because I love it. I don't want to build a battleship, I want to build a fleet of speedboats, right? So all of my managers, I make them as autonomous and self-sufficient as I can. You know, they're free to organize their teams the way they want. I have managers who have 30 people, 40 people. They decide if they want this much research, this much design, you know, if they need UX engineering. And I do all that because I want them to, I'm gonna hold them accountable, but I want to let them scale and kind of have an autonomous organization. That's the only way I can scale my organization, right? Because if I make, if I make them too dependent on some kind of centralized process or something, it just slows us down. We're also looking at empowering non-designers. What I mean by that is that we can't cover everything that we want to cover. It's impossible. We'll never do it. We'll never be as big as we need to be. Is anyone on a design team where you think you're too big? Yeah, that's like a stupid question. So some of the ways we're doing this is we are working towards making our research more accessible. You know, we're looking at ways to, you know, we produce a lot of research. All that research goes into a research archive. That's nice, but the research is thick. It's dense, you know. These are hard to consume by anybody who isn't a researcher. I start reading them and, you know, like halfway in, I'm gonna kill myself. So we're looking at ways to pull out insights, pull out something that others than research can actually leverage, right, to make better decisions. Sales, you know, engineering, product management. Visual Builder, we're building a tool, a prototyping tool called CloudKit. And this tool allows non-designers to assemble simple workflows and forms using our components out of our design system. And it's been very effective at helping us at least raise the bar on design in areas that we can't touch, right? It's not perfect, but then again, since we are a precious resource, I'm gonna focus my team more on the harder problems and let some of these things just get done well enough for the time being. We do a lot of training. We train engineers, product management on simple design principles and how to use these tools. We're developing an amazing design system. We're working with the material team under Matthias to desktopify materials really based, you know, intended for mobile. And we need a lot of desktop design, and so we're taking a lot of the material stuff and working with his team to take real world scenarios, right, and develop designs for that. And then, of course, we have levels of engagement, you know, where we have office hours. We do everything from office hours to, you know, research studies, design sprints, and everything else. All right, the last one. So what I mean by this, has anyone ever heard of the book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There? God, this book must not exist. I'm the only person in the world that's read this book. Or maybe I dreamed about this book, I don't know. But the premise of the book, it's probably a horrible book. The premise of the book is that what gets you here, right, are your basic design skills. You know, how will you design? How will you do research? How will you write? You know, but what's going to get you here is something else. And sometimes we call it soft skills or emotional intelligence, things like that. I hate to say those things because sometimes people dismiss it. It's like, it's not important, you know, it's soft skills. But I can tell you, I think I can say at this point in my career, I've hired 1,000 people. I think I can say that. And I mean hired. I don't mean like I've been given an organization of 300 or 400. I've actually hired 1,000. And this is where I see the biggest challenge. This is where I see the biggest shortcomings with people on my teams. You know, what keeps them from getting to the next level or being more successful? I can't stress it enough. And there are things that are easier said than done. You know, you're gonna look at them and most of them are very obvious, but we don't practice them. We don't actually follow through and do them, right? That's what I've observed. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So the first one, be proactive. So I met with a CEO in the Bay Area a few weeks ago and had lunch with him, and at the end of the meeting, I asked him, you know, when because I'm doing a lot of interviewing right now, I said, you know, when you talk to people, what's the most important thing to you? And he said, the single most important thing is I try to figure out if they're proactive. That's how I decide whether or not to hire somebody. I'm so guilty of being reactive. It's horrible, right? I come in and I open up my email and I have 50 emails and every one of them's a problem. And then I respond to them and that leads to another response and another problem. And that goes on. And before I know it, the end of the day is there and I haven't done anything that I plan to do, right? It's very easy to slip into reactive mode, but that's not where you're gonna see your biggest success. I mean, think about times in your past where you've done something you're really proud of, and it probably has some tie to being proactive, right, versus reactive. There are things we have to do, right? We can't not answer the emails, I get it. But you've really got to learn to say no, and you've really got to balance that reactive mode with being proactive. Work hard. This one kind of goes without saying. I would also say work smart. You know, when I was in school, I had a friend in school, and he had a much higher GPA than me. And it was frustrating me. And his name was Ben, and I asked him one day, I was like, Ben, why is your GPA so high? And he literally said, he goes, you know, honestly, Russ, you're a lot smarter than me, but I work twice as hard. And I followed up with him, and he's very successful, right? There's really no exception for it. I will hire somebody who's a hard worker over a genius any day, any day. You know, people who work hard get things done, and that's what we need, right? Be positive. Again, don't devalue positivity. Positivity, you know, raises us up, energizes our batteries, negativity drains them. Have you ever seen that poster by Reed Hastings, the CEO of Netflix? I think it goes something like, I'm gonna get it wrong, but it's something like there is no room for brilliant jerks, you know? You know, think about the positive people you work with at work and how much you enjoy doing that and how much they energize you and kind of, you know, make projects work, right? It's critical. Have grit. So I would say this is my personal mantra. If you want something badly enough, you'll figure out a way to get it. I live by that rule. When I was 22, I decided that I didn't want to work for IBM, and I wanted to be the CEO of my own company. Partly because I was stupid, but partly because I was ambitious, and I wanted to try something out. And so I started my own company, and I had no idea what I was doing. And I quickly realized that I had no money, and I was pretty desperate, right? And so I started going to local business gatherings, and I met a guy from Southwestern Bell. This was in Austin, Texas, in the US. And I said, I do software development. And he said, and it was just me. And he said, oh, do you know anything about call centers? You know, call center technology. And I said, yes. Yes, I know everything about call centers. And he was like, oh my God, it's amazing. He goes, so do you have a pretty big team that works on call centers? I go, yeah, I have a ton of developers working on call centers. So he said, I tell you what, he goes, if you come with me next week to meet with JCPenney's, we've got a big contract with JCPenney's to develop the call center of the future. He goes, you help me sell it, I'll give you the contract. So I left, I went to Barnes & Noble at the time, and I found books on call centers. I couldn't believe it. And I started, I'm like, wow, There's books for this. And I read about PBXs, automatic call distribution systems, interactive voice response systems. And the next Tuesday, I think it was, we went and we had the meeting with JCPenney's. They thought I knew what I was talking about, and they signed. And he gave me a $2 million contract, right, the next day. So I went to the car, I screamed, and then I had enough money to go hire developers, and we did. I hired developers. We actually delivered the project on time. We exceeded expectations, and we became a Southwestern Bell preferred business partner. And before I knew it, I had a 40-person company, and we were scaling up. You know, the reason I share that story is because literally at that point in that meeting with him, when he said, "Do you know anything about call centers?" I could have said no, right? I could have said, "No, I don't know anything," and that would have been it would have been done. You know, if you want something badly enough, you'll figure out a way to get it, right? Too often, I see people display grit outside of work, but not in work. You know, what? Yeah, maybe me, I don't know. Yeah, it's, you know, I think we have grit with things we're passionate about, right? Yeah, and sometimes that's not work, and maybe we need to figure out how to establish an environment where people are passionate about what they're doing, right? Because grit gets you a long way. Be pragmatic. The reason I say this is because too often I think designers are too far away from the business. You know, the big value of product management is very close to the business. And, you know, I can tell you right now, a lot of product managers are being told to learn design. I think a lot of designers need to learn product management. You know, the more you know about the business, the more valuable you are. Bottom line, right? And designers having that context will help them deliver better designs. Create trust. This was a very hard one for me, oddly. And I think it's because I started off in startups and small companies and kind of did what I needed to do and moved quickly. You know, but I learned this the hard way. If you want to collaborate, you have to create trust. Collaboration requires trust, right? Complexity requires collaboration. Collaboration requires trust. And trust is not easy to establish. It's not something that you get overnight with somebody, right? You have to have integrity. You have to follow through with what you say you're going to do. You have to spend time with people. Sometimes trust is just something that requires time. But when you establish trust, and I've seen examples of this, it's incredible, right? What starts to happen. And it's a very important concept. Be curious. So Eric Schmidt, the chairman of Google, was in an interview, and he was asked what qualities he thinks are most important for success in individuals. And he said two things: grit and determination in my list. And he said curiosity, not in my list, but then I added it because it's Eric Schmidt. It's true though, right? I mean, being curious conveys a lot of things. It conveys, you know, passion, right? You're curious about things you're passionate about. It is a great sign of success, and it also kind of, you know, having this attitude of how might we, it's a question we ask ourselves in Google, you know, to kind of keep our minds open instead of shutting ideas down. We ask, how might we, right? Because we're trying to keep the curiosity going, we're trying to keep solutions open, and we're trying to think outside the box. Take risks. This is another area where, and I realize that there are different points in our life where we can take bigger risks than others. When I was 22, I could take a lot of risks. Now I have 3 daughters, harder to take as many risks. But when I think of my biggest successes, they're usually tied to being proactive, and they're usually tied to taking risks. And risks are uncomfortable, but sometimes discomfort is required for change, right? And for growth. And so I would highly encourage you to take risks. You know, take a chance. Sometimes it won't work, sometimes you won't make it, but you'll never know if you don't try, and keep trying, right? And this one I call the UX superpower. So, I don't know how you can design great products without seeing the world through your users' eyes, right? Without really understanding what they're trying to accomplish and achieve, what their goals are. I think it's critical. You have to get in their minds. But it even goes beyond just your design work, right? If you're trying to sell something, if you're trying to negotiate, empathy is the key to success. You know, my abbreviation stands for what's in it for them. You know, I ask that every single time. If I go to my manager and I say I need 30 more people, I have already thought way ahead of time, what's in it for him to give me 30 more people? That's how I'm thinking of it. If I really want something, anything from any senior executive above me in the company, I begin my presentation in my head with what's in it for them. Why are they going to do this? Why do they even care, right? Can I make my manager look good? You know? I mean, trust me, it works, right? And the thing is, most of us are wired this way anyway. You know, most of us aren't really motivated to do something unless we see something that's in it for us, you know? And so I can't overstress the importance of empathy. I think empathy is key, and I talk to my teams about it all the time. That's it.